Welcome back to Nightcap Chat, the pop culture podcast. We talk all things comics, video games, movies, TV shows, and more. We are back in 2020, and we are recapping Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I'm Blade O'Neill, and today I am joined by Lance O'Neill and owner of Drawn to Comics, Ken Brown. How are you guys doing today?
Outstanding.
I'm doing great. How are you?
So we've been holding off on this episode to give everyone a chance to see Episode 9 and not provide anyone with spoilers. But here we are. It's the 20s again. It is 2020. Yes. Feels exactly like 2019.
Wow, what intuition you have.
Did you hear what they're calling this new 20s? Because it was the Roaring 20s back in the 1920s.
The lamer 20s?
I've seen it already on billboards celebrating 2020 New Year's parties.
Uh-huh.
They're calling entering the Soaring 20s. The Soaring 20s. Does that sound like something that's going to be? Is this going to be a soaring generation?
I don't feel like I'm soaring.
Yeah, dude.
It's just terrible.
I know. It's that kind of like,
so wrong.
Yeah. It's like, is it going to be the Touring 20s back in the year 2120? Or are they going to go RST? Because roaring, soaring, touring. What's this going to be now? It's going to be.
It's going to be the boring 20s.
The boring 20s. Yes.
I love it.
Well, I mean, after, you have Endgame and Star Wars, I guess it's all downhill from here, right?
Yeah. I mean, so if any of you listened to our episode where we recapped the Skywalker saga in preparation for Episode 9, we called a few things.
Yes. I think we called a lot of things, actually. It was pretty great. And actually, everything that I wanted, I got, which is actually extremely rare for me in films, especially lately. So it was a nice change of pace.
Before we get into the nitty gritty, what was just in like one sentence, like, what did you think of it?
Well, it was Episode 9. If I had to rank it out of 10, I would have gave it a 9.
Wow.
So I think it was perfect.
Yeah. I might give it a 10 out of 10, honestly. And I think it goes toe to toe with the best Star Wars movies ever.
Absolutely.
I mean, I agree with that. I'm having a hard time even making it not my favorite Star Wars movie. It's between my second and third favorite right now. But man, Raise of Palpatine.
I know.
I
mean,
my
gosh.
I know that's been brought up before, but I didn't think it was going to happen. But I will admit, watching 7 and 8, I watched them the day before and the day before that. We were watching one movie a night, and I was actually getting worried that was going to happen.
The foreshadowment on it was so subtle, but yet so awesome when they revealed the curtain. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, let's pull back the curtain and see what we've been teasing you with in these past two movies. Because there was a lot of people that put out a lot of, I would say, these last two Star Wars movies haven't been that great. But the third one made those last two that much more important.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, the third one.
So good foreshadowing.
The third one was so good that it made 7 and 8 way better. And I know we talked about this in our Star Wars podcast when we were recapping, and when we were ranking our 7 and 8, we felt like 8, it's hard to rank it because we don't know what happens in 9, and it's going to pull it one way or the other. And for me, it's better than 7 and 8 are now way better than 1, 2, and 3. And as far as I'm concerned, and then 4, 5, and 6, they're probably just right behind 4, 5, and 6.
So I'm glad you brought up the Episode 8 thing, because there's two things for me personally that Episode 9 did for Episode 8. Yes, it made Episode 8 better in a lot of ways, and a lot of the dumb choices less annoying. But it also made me dislike it even more on my list of, the 9 movies. I now put Episode 8 in the bottom.
Wow.
And it's because of how good I felt Episode 9 was. Because as we were going, they did stuff a lot about it. They stuffed a lot in it, and I thought it was awesome. I don't care what anyone says. But I realized, wow, I haven't had this feeling of these things happening since Episode 7, and all these reveals and these cool characters, and the way the humor is handled is there's a stark difference between the way JJ handles humor and the way Rian Johnson handles humor. Nothing happened in Episode 8 that I was like, wow, that's a really exciting revelation. Not one thing. We had Leia's lightsaber got revealed. That was so cool. I got chills. Just even thinking about it. Rey had a new lightsaber. The reveal that she was a Palpatine. There was the Sith, all the stuff with the Sith. The Wayfinder looks like a freaking holocron, you know. Revealing Palpatine, like how he looked, and the new Force. Like there were so many great reveals. What reveal in Episode 8 got us excited?
Yeah, Episode 8 was kind of like those middle movies that they've been doing for Star Wars are kind of your exploration of character movies, it feels like to me. Like they did it in Empire Strikes Back. They did it in Attack of the Clones.
But yeah, Episode
8, The Last Jedi was like one of those. Was it Last Jedi was Episode 8?
Yeah, but 5 was good.
It was one of the explorations of Rey as the character. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. Who is she? What is she? It's like, you know.
And what did Episode 8 tell you?
Absolutely nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
And
That's
then that was
point.
like they kind of like saved the big reveal that they did in Empire Strikes Back for Episode 9. I don't know why they did that on purpose, but it was kind of like Rey was the big mystery of this whole franchise. We found out really quickly that Kylo was obviously a Solo. And in the first movie of
but that was exciting.
The Rise, let's see, oh my gosh,
Awakens.
Force Awakens, thank you. And then in the Last Jedi, it's like, okay, is that, you know, was Luke the Last Jedi or is Leia the Last Jedi, obviously?
Well, I mean,
And then 9 revealed everything.
yeah, I feel like, I mean, I think it falls on the director.
Okay.
I mean, we've heard, you know, so much that how much they've had a hand in deciding like what happens, and there's been a lot of controversy, especially over 8. And as like there, like one example that I saw something people complaining online, and I don't understand why this movie there's a lot of bad things and hate on this movie, and I have absolutely no idea why. But one thing that someone did point out was, you know, Rey got her own lightsaber, which was awesome, right?
Yes.
And it was yellow, and it was so cool. And they were like, well, why couldn't they do this in 8 so we could actually have seen her in 9, like use it, and it'd be kind of cool to see it in action instead of just like one scene. I was like, well, it really comes down to probably the director
Yes.
chose not to do any of that, right? And JJ had to try to fix some of the ridiculousness in like the throwing away the lightsaber and all the other things that we didn't like, and he did an extremely good job with how he handled it. Yeah, he recovered it very well, and it blew 8 out of the water. It blew a lot of Star Wars movies out of the water.
Well, I think they said that JJ said, you know, a rough idea of what should happen next, and Rian Johnson just completely threw it out. And I think that's really evident in what happened anyway. And that's why I like 8 even less, because there was so many cool things stuffed into 9. There was plenty for both movies. I think it was awesome that we got to see Leia, Jedi Master.
Yes.
You know, we saw back some of the training. Like that was some of the stuff we've been imagining since 1983.
Yeah, when Return of the Jedi came out, you
or
found out they
82,
were twins.
83. Yeah, exactly. You know, we could have, you know, you brought up Empire Strikes Back being character development. We got the big reveal, the biggest reveal, arguably, of the franchise,
Absolutely,
that
during
Darth
that movie.
Vader is Luke's father. You
Yeah.
know, like we had no moment like that in Last Jedi. We had like, you have this question of who is Rey, who is Snoke, and we're not telling you. Like that was the point. Rian Johnson literally just made twists and turns for the sake of making twists and turns, and without actually focusing on developing the mythology.
Yes.
And clearly, like that's not Star Wars. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you like Last Jedi, like that's fine. I'm not saying I hate it, because like I like all the Star Wars movies, but I want Rian Johnson to never touch a Star Wars movie again.
He probably never will
Quite frankly.
either.
Well, he's developing that trilogy, and I can't wait for him to back out.
I thought they canned it.
They canned the one that the
What's the next
the
trilogy
Game
they're
of
planning on?
the Game of Thrones writers were developing a trilogy. They haven't said that. They just gave a trilogy. Allegedly, they gave a trilogy to Rian Johnson to develop, and a trilogy for the Game of Thrones writers to develop. But they backed out for their Netflix deal.
Okay.
Allegedly, which I call nonsense, because like you don't leave Star Wars for Netflix. I'm
Thrones,
sorry.
yeah.
Like something else happened, you know. But man, so what was your favorite part, do you think, of episode 9?
There's so many. That's the hard thing. Like one of my favorite moments were the ones that you could see them coming, but you were so excited to see.
Absolutely.
Like my favorite one that stands out to me right now in my head is when Kylo's talking to himself and then his dad pops into the scene. Han Solo.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
that was to me like a lot of fun, because you kind of thought Solo was done oh my gosh, dude. What was I keep
Force
on getting up with
Awakens.
Force Awakens. I apologize right now. I need to wake in my head. Wake up, Ken. Knock, knock. Okay. Let's see. Force Awakens, like when that was to me one of the most powerful moments
Yes.
in this franchise
Yeah.
was Kylo feeling that he completely turned to the dark side when he killed his father.
Yep.
That's what he wanted to do to prove that, yes, I'm committed to this. And then finally, the discernment of himself of going like that, finding out like that how evil in his mind Palpatine really is. And he was fighting that the whole time. Once he found out that Palpatine was alive at the start of that movie, he started struggling with what side of this battle am I going to be on. And then for him to justify the fact of like the worst thing he could do to get to the point where he wanted to be was the way that pulled him back to the right side of the Force.
Yeah. And
Which is how it shows you how powerful the Force is.
and that was one of the, like, I feel like there were these I love you moments that almost happened but didn't happen. And that was one of them, because when he was talking to like his imagination of Han, I guess it was, you know, it's like, you know, I know what I need to do, but like, I don't know if I can do it. And then he says like, Dad, and like, he can't get the words out. And what does he say? He says, I know.
Yes.
So now we all know that's his response to I love you. So like, he knew that Ben was trying to say I love you to him, but he couldn't get it out, you know? So like,
He was still struggling with that dark side of his soul at that moment.
Absolutely. What about you? What do you think your favorite moment was?
Oh, it's such a hard one because there's so many good moments.
We're not holding you to this.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to change like as this podcast goes.
Yes, I'm sure we're all going to change it.
I'm not going to say it's my favorite, but something that was like really like cool, shocking, like a lot of emotions went through.
Yes.
Was when Rey and Kylo are in the desert and they're fighting over the ship that's going down.
That was awesome.
And then you think Chewie's in there, but she force lightninged it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy, and then it blows up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, Chewie's dead, and then I'm just like, this is amazing, but like not like, and then you're wondering, well, what does that mean for her?
That's a dark side power.
That's right. So you're just
Palpatine
there's so many emotions in that one moment that I was like, wow. And then I'm like, Chewie's dead, and then of course, obviously he wasn't. You find out like 5 minutes later, but you were also thinking, her doing that, was that going to push her to the dark side? Like she, you know, it just made you question everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I think my favorite moments, and I might change, you know, just like we all said, but there was something so incredibly just feeling like one of the biggest things like I wanted like out of like a final installment in the Skywalker saga, and it really happened, was when Rey at the end, she's channeling the Be With Me for all the Jedis.
Yes.
And man, not only, you know, did we have the expected Jedi like Yoda and Luke and Obi-Wan, but we got Mace Windu, Liam Neeson, Ahsoka Tano, like Ashley Eckstein reprised her role. We got Kanan from Star Wars Rebels. We got Jedi Master Luminara. She has like the yellowish skin with like the dots on her chin. And then one I can't pronounce, but I know who she is. And I think she was Kanan's master before the fall of the Republic. But my goodness, like they all, like we got a live action Ahsoka Tano, you know, and voiced by Ashley Eckstein. Like, how do you get better than that? Like, it was just like 2 sentences. But like that was so cool. Like all the Jedi were there, and tell me that like this was not the same ending as Endgame, where like everyone comes for the final fight, and then it says instead of I am inevitable, it's like I am all the Sith. Like, and I thought she was gonna say like, and I am Iron Man, like snap the gauntlet. It's like, and I am all the Jedi. Like it was the same. It was the same wrap up, right? Yeah. And I have absolutely no problem with that, because all I wanted was a satisfying ending. And I got it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm eating cheese while I'm recording.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, and I was actually about to be extremely upset like I was at Endgame too. So it was like...
Because she's your favorite.
She's my favorite. Iron Man's my favorite.
Yes.
She dies, and I'm just like, are you... This can't be happening again. Like, I can't go through this one more time. And thankfully, it turned around, right, and rightfully so. I think that was a good way to end it, and it was kind of... I guess it was like the one way that you can have Ben die, I guess, righteously.
Didn't it call you back to like Anakin and Luke together at the end of Return of the Jedi?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that was, I thought it was a fun rewrite of that scene in Return of the Jedi, where you get the best of both worlds. You get to see Kylo or Ben Solo at this time, because he did go back to being Ben, and doing the ultimate sacrifice. And obviously, Return of the Jedi, Vader throwing the Emperor over the edge.
Right.
And this one, Ben sacrificing his own life after he's now the lights again, still going, raise the true lights. If I can save her, I need to do this.
Right.
And that to me was like, oh my gosh, dude. And I don't know if it was like a brother-sister kiss they did there for a second, or cousins kissing cousins. I was kind of going was there like that romantic love that Kylo had for Rey? And that was kind of a little bit of a question mark to me, because they're both from the same lineage, because Palpatine created the Skywalker lineage of Anakin going forward.
That was certainly my argument. That's
through the whole thing.
It was weird.
But she's a pure Palpatine. So it was almost like the Luke Leia kiss back in Empire Strikes Back, which was kind of a little bit, you didn't know what they were at the time. But at this point, you still don't know what they are at the time, other than the fact that they're not blood relatives, but they come from the same source.
I don't think it was like a brother-sister thing. Like, just because of how they did it. Because it was like a slow thing, like look into your eyes.
Yeah. Look down at your mouth and back up.
Right. Yeah. Like it wasn't like a good luck. Like, okay. Like,
this is true love, whether it's, relative or.
I don't know if I don't say I have a problem with it either way. I don't think it didn't really bother me. I just, how it was handled and how he disappeared and he was a sacrifice was great. And she did do what she needed to do to defeat him, which was awesome, but he took the fall for it. And I think that was like the only way you could possibly do it.
Yes.
And he has to die. And like we said it in our recap was like, I do not want Ben Solo redeemed unless he dies, because that's not fair. He did too many messed up things for him just to be like, I'm a good guy now, and like everything's gonna be okay, because it's not like he killed Han, Yeah, sure, he didn't kill Leia, but like that was showing his his little inner struggle, the conflict. I mean, that's a recurring theme. But like, I mean, that was the only thing like I didn't really care for was the kiss, and that's why I don't rate it like a perfect 10 out of 10. Like to me, it's like a 9.8 now out of 10. But it really wasn't enough to make that much to complain.
It was a good moment for the movie too. As well.
I just feel like they didn't know each other well enough to have such feelings yet, but maybe I'm just overthinking. It was fan service for everyone who wanted Rey and Kylo to get together, and that's, although I don't think it's a good idea. Whatever, it's fine. But they explained that they are diodes in the Force, and I didn't catch that till my second viewing. Like Kylo explained that, and that's why they were having those. I mean, they're almost like teleportation scenes where they're connected and they can touch each other, even though they're
like twins. It's almost, but not twins.
Twins, but not twins. So they're diodes in the Force. And Palpatine, explains this, toward the end of the movie, and like diodes in the Force. So this hasn't been seen for generations, So this is something that has happened before, but it's the first time we're seeing it as consumers, I guess. But really interesting. Yes. Like all the extra Force stuff, like it's so much fun to explore things of the Force that we haven't seen. That's why I don't understand why people complain when a new Force thing comes around.
Can I connect something too that I think they revealed right before the movie came out too? And something like it used to be more thought of it was a Sith power to bring back life, and then obviously the Sith lightning, and then the more or less the healing type of thing of like bringing life back.
That is Sith stuff.
Yeah. Now, but I think it's more or less was revealed that it's a Force power, whether it's Sith, Jedi, or anything, because in that the healing factors and the things that you do that Jedis don't usually choose to do, but it's a Force power regardless. And that was revealed by Mandalorian that last episode. The Baby Yoda was doing the healing inside that last episode right before the rise of Skywalker was released the day after. And I wondered if that was to establish that that's a Force ability, not a Sith ability.
Yeah. So my personal perspective on it is that you can use certain things and certain abilities, but the Sith and the Jedi separated it, but it was separated just by them. It's not like it's like this thing. Doctrines. Yeah. It's just
by their practices.
Their practices, and it literally has nothing to do with anything else besides that. Because at the end of the day, the Force is everywhere, right? The Force is everything.
Yes.
There's people that are Force sensitive, but they're not Jedis or Sith yet, right? Until one of them eventually finds them and decides, I'm going to make you a Jedi or make you a Sith. So I think like you said, it was just them trying to explain that. But I also think that was the whole point of the movie was when she died or Ben dies, it's the end of the Jedis.
Yes.
And when Palpatine dies, the end of the Sith. Now, after that, it's going to just be about
Force users.
The Force. It's about Force users. And it might come up where there's a whole new religion or whatever it is that you want to call it that, we're the good side, we're the bad side, and this is our practices. Sure, that might happen. But at the end of the day, she has brought the balance.
Yes,
and there's no longer one side or the other.
I agree with you up until like that. I still think she's a Jedi, but I think this is like a new age of Jedi.
Well, I think now their Jedis will be Skywalkers from here on forward.
I don't think they're going to call it that because I still felt like it was a surname, and there was those themes of
because she could start become like the new trainer of people using the Force.
That's what I took it as. I thought she was going to like build a temple right next to is it called the Skywalker Ranch or the Skywalker Moisture Farm or wherever she was, at the end of the movie. But man, like I literally like cried like the last 10 minutes of that movie because I was just like, oh my goodness, this is perfect.
And I said too, it's like, and it tied everything up. Like if this is it, it feels like you don't need anything else if you don't want it.
Yeah.
But if you do want it, they did leave that open ending. Like, as you said, now Rey can develop her own temple right next to where the Skywalker house, compound, whatever, like their homestead was when Luke started this whole thing back in episode 4. Do you know what I mean? Which was the start of the franchise, even though that 1, 2, and 3 were the prequels. It's just like everything went full circle for me. Do you know what I mean? It ended where it started. And how can you ask for anything more circular than that? That sounds so weird. I felt so.
Yeah.
I know, dude. I'm not articulating myself right, but it's the full circle happened in this movie. It was unbelievable.
Totally. I mean, but at the same time, I feel like 10 years from now, they could be like, we're going to do 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Well, I think if they do, I don't know, if they do it, would they do it as 10, 11, 12? Or are they going to make it? Because this is, you could say it's the Skywalker saga, but she says she's a Skywalker, but she's not a Skywalker.
Adopted Skywalker.
Yes.
Right. So it doesn't really count, right?
Yeah, sure. And that's another way to do it because, I mean, it is a disservice to
the rest
like
of the
wrapping
franchise.
this up with Palpatine, like, oh, now there's just more bad guys. Like what are we doing? Like, is this ever going to stop? Like, it is a disservice.
Done. Yeah.
The Skywalker saga should be done. It's just I want to see what Rey does, especially with that yellow lightsaber, just going forward, And they left it. Finn is Rey sensitive, and Rey sensitive.
Yeah, Force sensitive. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Finn is Force sensitive. Probably not like Jedi user Force sensitive, but he kept sensing things throughout the movie.
Force sensitive too, in a way, because he was raised around the Force tree. They revealed in that Shattered Empire.
Yes, they did. I don't think he's Force sensitive, but he's definitely familiar with all that mythology. Yeah, because was it Luke gave Poe's mother that tree from that Palpatine
chamber?
Had? Yeah.
Because he was trying to trap the Force or the growth of the Force inside of his own chambers.
It's so cool. That's all the stuff they added with the Sith, and like they had the Sith, artifacts, and they had the temple on I forget the name of the planet that was in the unknown regions. Like all of that stuff was stuff that like we've never had the chance to see in live action before. That was only like touched on in shows like Clone Wars and Rebels, and we got that. And that's part of the reason why I was just more disappointed in 8, because like we didn't add anything exciting to the mythology. Like really nothing happened.
It was just like a transition movie just to get to 9 is what 8.
I mean, that's unfortunate. Like you could have had a lot of these cool aspects of it and talked about, Leia's training and stuff. Cause like obviously she was training, right after Return of the Jedi, we know that she was strong with the Force, that's why that little sequence was really cool where Luke was training her.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was one of the best parts of the whole film.
Absolutely.
Was like her, and it was how they CGI'd it and everything was cool. It was just like, wow, we just got a scene from like middle of episode 5 between 5 and 6 or after 6?
No, it's
just post 6.
After
Okay,
6.
it was just so awesome. Like,
yes.
It almost makes you feel like maybe they could do a little like one shot, right, or something.
Well, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series is going to be starting to show what Obi-Wan Kenobi was doing on Tatooine to protect Luke. Is that's what that series is supposed to be about? Coming up?
After episode 3, before 4, but like Ewan McGregor is the perfect age to
do
be
that.
just before Alec Guinness's age. And this was planned for a movie, but they changed it to a Disney
TV
Plus.
series. Imagine them doing the same thing with like Leia's daughter, doing the computer animation of her face over Leia's daughter, who's obviously been in this new franchise, all 3 movies, as a character that's kind of a throwaway character, in all due respect, but giving her that chance to be part of this legacy that her mom was part of for all these years.
Well, have you seen the pictures comparing, what's the name of the girl who plays, I'm going to get this number wrong, I think it's 11 in Stranger Things? She looks exactly like Carrie Fisher at that age.
That would be awesome to have her do that Princess Leia series, like where Luke's training Leia and you see the adventures of Leia.
Luke's training Leia, or, I wouldn't even care if we just got something simple as like her adventures and Pope before episode 4.
Yeah.
Like some like rebellion stuff. Like they did like one episode in Rebels where they met a very young Princess Leia right before was it Rebels? Yes. Yeah, I think it was Rebels. But I mean that's
you're right too. It could be an animated series type of thing too for that Leia type of deal.
That's that's fine. Because if it doesn't look like Carrie Fisher, like I'm just gonna be disappointed.
As long as it's not like an Agent Carter kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like, hey, whatever, it kind of gets boring. But what would be cool though is if maybe they said this, they're done with the Skywalker saga, but maybe they're thinking, depending on how well this movie goes, maybe they'll do like a Rey TV series or something. Yes. Or they just have her and try to lead her story with some type of, because they've already they put money into The Mandalorian. They weren't sure how well it's going to do. They put over $100 million into that show. So if they're getting a good response from episode 9, maybe, they were waiting to hold back before, they announced anything or said anything, but maybe that's the whole main idea behind it.
Yeah. I mean, but the Star Wars universe is as big as a universe. Like there's more characters than just Luke and Leia and Rey and The Mandalorian. If that proves anything, is like, you can just develop these interesting characters and just tell good stories. And like, that's all that really matters. You just got to make it feel
got good writing.
Like Star Wars.
Have good writing in the Star Wars universe.
It's like The Mandalorian is like the spaghetti western of the Star Wars universe. And if you look at Marvel and what Marvel has done very successfully is like they haven't just been making superhero movies. All of their superhero movies, or most of them anyway, have had kind of a subgenre, and that's what really keeps them fresh and good. Like, I mean, look at Winter Soldier. It's very like political thriller meets superhero movie. Look at Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like their sci-fi space superhero movie. Iron Man is the very down to earth one. Then you go to Thor or Doctor Strange. It's like magic. And I think it's these subgenres within it being a quote Star Wars movie that's going to keep things, fresh and interesting.
Like the Black Widow's going to be a spy thriller.
Exactly. And like that's what keeps things fresh and different than like the good guy fights the bad guy. Like, okay, great, but what more than that? Like I'll never get sick of Marvel movies, especially in this formula. But I mean, the Star Wars universe is expansive, and there's lots of B and C characters to explore. I mean, like. No, there's a little more room for Ahsoka Tano. Like we've done most of her life, but like, we've got a huge gap missing. That would be really interesting to fill in, post Return of the Jedi. Cause think about the end of episode 9 now. All those Jedi were dead. Yes. Is Ahsoka dead now? 30 years after Return of the Jedi?
Because she's a Force
by my calculations, she would be in her 70s. So she could have been alive. She's alive at the end of Rebels, so like, did she die at some point? And if so, how did she die? Like let's fill in these blanks.
Yes.
Well, of those people that said her name, like Rey, who of them are alive? Like,
none.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah. I think you just answered your own question.
I know, but I know, but I just don't want her to be dead. But I just want the rest of her story.
The one who is alive, that was been part of this franchise, that knows a lot about the Jedi mythology and the Force mythology. Gosh, dude, I don't know if we can pause this for a second.
Are you going to say
Maz
Katana?
Yes, Maz Katana, and she's a person.
Maz Kanata. I screwed that up.
And she's a person I think is a linchpin character they can develop the story off of.
I think Rian Johnson did not respect what they were trying to do with her in episode 7, because episode 9, she was like she was in episode 7, like, I am no Jedi, but I know the Force.
She's a witness in a lot of things that's been, or she's been a gatekeeper, because she was like in charge of the Jedi Bible, right? Was it, what did she give?
No. She had the lightsaber. She had Luke's lightsaber.
How did she get that?
That was the one thing that wasn't answered in episode 9, was how did that lightsaber go from, Bespin, when Luke got his hand cut off, to Maz's basement.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that was not answered. But obviously a comic or a novel is probably going to explore that, whether it's from the point of view of Maz or not.
Or you just blow them up on Twitter and see if they respond.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's do it. Everybody start to, all right, we're recording this like 3 weeks in advance. So if it has not been revealed at this point, like, let's all just get together and start tweeting Star Wars. Like, how did Maz get Luke's lightsaber? Like, tell us now.
And at the end of the movie, there was the Luke and Leia lightsaber were wrapped up and buried, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I started crying even harder.
Yeah, and that's like that. It's there's too. There are so many things. Like, I need to go see it again still. So I've only seen it once so far, and I want to go by and just not just watch the story, but look for all the Easter egg things and all the little things that are supposed to be recognized, but you don't worry about it the first time you see it. And then digging into it and really analyzing what we can do with this.
Like her lightsaber is her staff that she changed to make into a lightsaber.
That's right. You're right. Yes.
I just looked at a picture of it and I was like, it kind of looked familiar. And then I looked at her staff and I was like, oh my gosh.
She built her lightsaber
out of that staff.
So I'm saying
it almost seems like that she had that staff
for that purpose.
It was given to her or whatever it was. And it was literally, that was the whole reasoning, was because it was supposed to be her lightsaber.
Yes. It was like, oh my gosh. You see, I said too, the foreshadowing that's been going in these movies has been so well executed. Number 9 of all things revealed. That's what I said too. It's like that. It's just, that's what I was enjoying the most, is even though like I was just trying to watch the story, I was getting in all of these. Oh man, see, it's unbelievable. It's like everything's set up there to be revealed in this movie, and they just unfolded everything into the perfect piece of paper that we wanted to read. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like that note being passed in class you've been waiting for when you're a kid.
Right.
And then it's like, oh my God, it's everything I wanted more. She said yes. You know what I mean? And you're like, that dude, first girlfriend, 6th grade, yes. You know what I mean? And it's just little stupid things like that where it's like that. It was that kind of emotion that happened by the time this movie was over. And it's like, I just can't believe they executed it that well.
It hooked me from the beginning. Like they literally jumped right into it, and then like, Ben was killing all these people on this planet. I wasn't really sure what's going on, but it was a cool action sequence. And then he opens the thing and he picks up what I thought was a holocron. The first time before they said it was a Sith Wayfinder, but I was like, wow, this is what we're doing. And then he shows up to a temple. Like, I literally just looked over to my friend and I was like, this is what we're doing. Like
it's amazing.
Like this is, and then it was just. It was, I don't want to say roller coaster, because I think roller coasters go back down, but like what is it? It's just like, I'm just hooked the whole time. Like, what more? Yes. I don't know what more I could have wanted out of this, honestly.
And I love the Mandalorian preview sneak peek was the most insignificant sneak peek they showed.
I intentionally skipped it. What was it? Oh my
gosh. It was just them flying around and the Millennium Falcon being chased by TIE fighters. That was the sneak peek they showed you, just to kind of show you like that. Hey, this is going to be Star Wars for you guys. You're going to get your ships, you're going to get your chases, you're going to get your battles in the stars, but didn't do anything to spoil any part of the plot. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that they chose the most insignificant scene of the movie to share with, hey, here's what you're going to get. Look, here's what you're in for in this movie.
Yeah. So it's a couple of things that were cool. Remember, I know we talked about the Fortnite event. So one thing from the Fortnite event, after now looking back at it, is if you watch the event, there was that part where Palpatine starts talking and time like slows down, like you can barely like move. And that whole entire thing that he said, like this whole long like paragraph, wasn't even in the movie. Because they ended up saying that it didn't fit anywhere, so they just left it out. But they kept it for the Fortnite thing, which was kind of cool. But looking back at it, there was something that I wanted to say, but I didn't because it was a spoiler. And now I'm going to say what it was there was 4 clips and they all had names, right? Okay. One of them was Jedi Mind Trick, which is what the clip was. And it was her saying when they're on the ship and she tells us the it's okay that we're here. It's okay that you're. That's all it was. It's your great. Yes. Yeah, you're happy that we're here, right? Yeah. So that was the clip they showed. The name of the other two clips. One of them was Darth Jar Jar, which was obviously there was nothing to do with anything. But the other one, which is what they were probably trying to throw you off with the Darth Jar Jar, like, oh well, that's not going to be in it. Was Knights of Ren.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we got to see the Knights of Ren.
And you did get to see the Knights of Ren. So
but we knew that from the trailers. Or
we got to see Palpatine's army of them for the first time. I don't think we saw that big of an army until Palpatine had him surrounding him.
The Sith troopers and stuff.
Like weren't those Knights of Ren that what the Palpatine had surrounded? Like where Ben Solo was fighting at the end of the movie.
Ben fought the Knights of Ren. Yes, there's 6 of them. He's the leader of the Knights of Ren. The Sith troopers were in the chamber with Palpatine, and they were in the red armor on the Star Destroyers.
Oh yes, okay, there were those
that were fighting. I guess the Resistance. So the Knights of Ren is like is a.
But was that the first time we saw them?
No, because we saw them in the flashbacks when Kylo kills everyone in Episode 7.
But we knew that's what they were.
Yeah, because there was a novel too.
Oh, well,
that tied into that, and Snoke said like, "You leader of the Knights of Ren," you know. Knights of Ren was, I think, one of the things that JJ set up for Episode 8, and he just didn't bother doing anything with.
Oh wow!
You know, so like that's what I'm saying. Like he literally did different things for the sake of it. Yes.
That scene was awesome though when he's fighting them, and then him and Rey like Force link, and then he gives him the lightsaber. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yes. And he has like a little reaction after he pulls out, and he's like, like I don't even know how to describe the gesture. He's just like, well, what can I say?
It was great because that's the second time that's happened.
What do you mean?
Because in Episode 8, she threw him his lightsaber, and when he was fighting the red stormtrooper, and then he grabbed it and put the lightsaber through his head.
Praetorian Guard.
Yeah, I couldn't think of that. Yeah. So it was the second time that she's actually given him a lightsaber and saved him, but this time it was completely different. But it was a cool little. I don't know. I like the scene. It was cute.
It was cool. I mean,
it was very chain storytelling. That's what I liked about these 7, 8, 9 movies. There were links that were being connected all the way through to the end of the story.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think they executed that better than most finales of franchises I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, I could not have. I just wanted it to be a good ending. Like I didn't expect it to be this good, and I'm just very satisfied. You know, and I don't know what more else we really could have gotten at. You guys have any closing thoughts here on Episode 9 before we close up?
So I said too, it was like I'm excited to go see it again. And as I said, it was like there were so many bows tied. It's funny, it's Christmas time right now. I'm sorry, when we're recording here, and I feel like there's nothing better than when they tie up a franchise we had such high hopes for, and we're not disappointed, and we're not unsatisfied. We are, there's always gonna be things you could pick apart a little bit of it, but you don't need to. It's just you just trying to be, or someone just trying to be fickle because they didn't get what they wanted. And there's a difference between like being a fan and being a predictor. And if you're a fan, you can't be disappointed. If you predict things that didn't come to fruition, that's not your story to tell. It's your story to watch.
Yeah, and I think this isn't a comic book adaptation. Like whatever happens is canon. So like, let's just enjoy the mythology and story they're telling. Like that really should be all it comes down to.
Yeah, and like if you're like debating on like seeing it, or because you hear reviews and you hear one things or other, just go there with an open mind, understand that it's canon, and just take for it what you feel. In my opinion, and I know probably for our opinions, it was a great movie. They did a great job. It's something you also need to see in the movie theater also, because it's certain things are on such a massive scale that I don't think it would give it any justice when you were watching it, right? Like some of the scenes in outer space, or when the
allies arrive at the end.
When the allies arrive, but when they first reveal all the oh my gosh, what they're called. The things to destroy the planets.
Oh, the Star Destroyers.
I was literally losing I couldn't think of it. Anyway, when they show all the Star Destroyers, you're just like, what the heck? Like, how is this even, how am I even seeing this? Like, it was ridiculous how many there were.
And they're all Death Star destroyers, not just Star Destroyers. Like, they're like Death Star destroyers.
With planet destroying tech. Yeah, definitely see in theaters. Like, even knowing the spoilers and just like, oh, Rey's Palpatine. Like, yeah, like on paper, like that might sound stupid. And at first I was like, what? But like, it's literally the way they tell it. I was like, yeah, totally. Like, you gotta see it all in context and let the story happen. And it just makes it so much better. And yes, like I would definitely see it in theaters. Cause like I even went to the bathroom the second time, I saw it and I came back and I was like, wow, like I'm hearing a Star Wars movie. Like, in theory, like we're never going to have another Skywalker saga movie again. Like, this is it. Like, I need to see this again. Like, I saw episode 1, like 10 to 14 times or something silly in the movie theaters. And like, I mean, I got kind of the same feeling from episode 7, but like, I mean, besides that, I do like the prequels now more than I did when they first came out, but I haven't really felt this way since they released the Star Wars trilogy special edition back in the 90s in theaters. It was like that kind of a feeling, going to this movie for me.
And one last thing too, I was just noticing too and remembering about, enjoying about it. There was not one part of the Star Wars thing they revealed to you in the past they didn't touch on. Mm-hmm. Like even seeing that little 3-second Ewoks waving on Endor. And I'm going, dude, that's like totally something that there's everything that made Star Wars what it was giving to you again in this movie.
Yeah, even John Williams, who scored all of the Star Wars movies, he had a cameo as an X-Wing pilot. So like he finally got
was John Williams. What's that X-Wing pilot? We're trying to figure out who it was.
Who said, oh, good flying Lando or good shooting Lando or whatever. Like that was John Williams who composed all the Star Wars music.
The Lando ending was interesting though. Mm-hmm. They kind of like, she was like, the whole girl that she didn't know who he was. Like, well, let's find out. That kind of left it open for like, what is he going to do? Where is that going to go? And it was really interesting. And it was nice to see him in the film. That was awesome. Mm-hmm. It's also great that they basically got everyone from episode 4, 5, and 6 in the film. And it helps, to me, it helps make the movie, it makes me feel a little better putting it up with those movies. I think I'd feel uncomfortable saying that, oh, it was better than 4 or 5 or whatever. But because they're in there, it kind of has like their blessing almost.
Yes.
And that like, hey, this is the good end. This is the ending that we wanted and whatever. Yep. So it was a nice touch. One thing though, I know Star Wars has no problem going back and changing things.
Oh no.
Right?
Yes.
So maybe a couple of years down the road, they might change some things in episode 8, because they have no problem. Oh, yes. Who shot first, and just little things that might make 8 a little better. I'm just throwing that out.
Change that again too. Yeah, I know that did cross my mind. I mean, we'll definitely see if certain things are handled different, but I really doubt it. Disney's aware of the backlash of the original changes, but I mean, Lucas did them. So, I mean, like, you can't argue like, oh, I wish Lucas did the the new trilogy and then like complain about his changes. Like, just some people are just never satisfied with anything. And that's just sad.
That's unfortunate.
It's a sad way of living. But we appreciate you all joining us back in this new year, this new decade, and this new season of Nightcap. It's not a new decade? Oh, I guess, yeah, it's not, because next year is a new decade, but we'll pretend that 0 is a new decade. It feels like a new decade, but not at all. A new year, new life, new Nightcap chat, new season. Thank you all for taking the time to listen, share, subscribe, and leave reviews on, platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, and wherever you listen to us on a weekly basis. But we will catch you all next week, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening, guys.
May the force be with you.